ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी शुभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरम्। हरि ओम तत्सत्। हरे कृष्णा। So welcome to the discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. Today we'll be starting with the next chapter, which is chapter 8. Chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita is entitled as Attaining the Supreme. The title is given as such because in this particular chapter, the Lord is summarizing, while earlier he has been giving the process. Now he is specifically talking about how to ensure that the yogi actually attains the transcendental realm. Is there something special that needs to be done when the yogi is leaving his body so that he can actually attain the transcendental realm rather than take another world, another birth in this material world? Because that is the normal situation. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam. Going to another womb, or maybe going temporarily to the heavenly planets or to the hellish planets, enjoying or suffering and then coming back. So in the 7th chapter, the Lord has already given knowledge about himself. He has explained how he is the Lord of the material energy and the control of the material energy, never influenced, but always in control. How all the living entities are also his subordinate energy, superior energy, but subordinate. How the souls are not equal to him, nor is the material energy equal to him, nor are the devatas equal to him, nor is the impersonal Brahman equal to him. All of these are various aspects, most of which are actually aspects of his energy. The Jiva is the Tatastha Shakti. The material world is his Maya Shakti. The Brahma Jyoti is actually a spiritual kind of energy, even though it is an aspect of the Lord himself, it is his effulgence. The Lord is very categorical that it is not that I am originally the effulgence and from the effulgence a form is carved out. Krishna says actually it's the other way around. From the form, the light is shining. Yes, correct? It's like from the bulb, the light is emanating. From the sun, the sunlight is coming. Similarly, from Krishna's spiritual form, the unlimited spiritual rays of the Brahma Jyoti are expanding in all directions. It is not that there was a light and from the light one light bulb was made. No, from the light bulb comes the light. So Krishna says those who are not intelligent, they think like this. And then he also clearly distinguishes how the devatas are also part of his universal body and how it is not the same worshipping him and worshipping the devatas. And Krishna explains 7.20 to 24, if I'm not wrong. With respect to worshipping him and worshipping the devatas. So after having given all this spiritual knowledge, at the beginning of the 8th chapter, Arjuna starts by asking Krishna some questions. Now, the reason what has prompted Arjuna to ask question, he has asked some 5-6 questions in the first and the second verse, and we'll come to that, what he is asking. But what has prompted these questions on the side of Arjuna is that this terminology of whatever words Arjuna is asking, those words, those terms have been used by Krishna towards the end of the 7th chapter. And Arjuna wants to make sure that he understands those concepts very clearly. Yeah, just like when we take a book, especially a book which is a very heavy topic on some science, technology, some form of very deep, profound knowledge. Usually for all the heavy words, there will either be a glossary or there will be a list of definitions. So Arjuna, like a good student is raising his hand and saying, I want to make sure I understood the meaning of some of these words that you used, O Krishna, especially in the last few verses of the 7th chapter. So he starts by asking those questions. And the 8th chapter is essentially focused on answering those questions of Krishna, of Arjuna. So let us see what are the questions that Arjuna asks and how the Lord answers. It's very interesting. And through those answers, we get deeper insight into some of these concepts. So let us see what the Lord was asked by Arjuna. 8.1 begins with Arjuna Uvacha. Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adi bhutam cha kim proktam adi daivam kim uchyate. O Purushottam, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, the transcendental person, Krishna, you mentioned all these words. Please tell me, what is the meaning of that word you use? Kim tat Brahma, you use that word Brahma. What is this word Brahman? And what is this word Adhyatma that you referred to? And what is this word Karma that you have been referring to again and again and again for the last 6 chapters? Probably this was a late question that he asked, but better late than never. Yeah, because Krishna has been talking about karma right from second chapter, third chapter, fourth chapter, fifth chapter, sixth chapter, seventh chapter. And now, sometimes we are hesitant. I'm not saying Arjuna was hesitant, but I'm just, probably Arjuna was waiting for the right time. Sometimes in a class, you have to wait for the right time to ask the question. You don't want to just jump in and break the flow. So Arjuna thought, now is a good time. Krishna has summarized the process in the first 6 chapters and he has summarized knowledge about himself in the 7th chapter. Hands raised. These are the words I did not understand very clearly. Please explain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Brahma, please explain. Adhyatma, please explain. Karma, please give me a very precise definition. You may think, is Arjuna stupid that he's asking about karma? Everybody knows. Arjuna wants to have a very precise understanding of the word karma. Because Krishna, when he's defining these terms, is very, very precise. And it's very beautiful definitions Krishna gives. And then he also says, I want to understand what is Adi Bhuta, Adi Daiva, and Adi Yajna. Adi Yajna is actually asked in the next verse. But he says, I want to understand all these three. These three words are actually used, Adi Bhuta, Adi Daiva, and Adi Yajna, towards the end of the 7th chapter in one verse, where Krishna says to Arjuna that he who understands me as these three can understand perfectly and meditate on me. So Arjuna, picks up that and says, no, I want to be very clear. What does this word mean? Exactly. Please explain to me. Adi Bhuta, Adi Daiva, Adi Yajna. Three terms. So Adi Bhuta, the way the English translation is given is, he's asking, what is this material manifestation? And Adi Daivam, what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. And then he continues the question in 8.2. He says, Adi Yajna Katham Gotra Dehe Asmin Madhusudana Prayanakale Cha Katham Neyosi Niyatatmavihi. Who is the Adi Yajna that you had mentioned? And how does this Adi Yajna, the Lord of Sacrifice, literally Adi Yajna means the Lord of Sacrifice. How does this Lord of Sacrifice reside within our body? Oh Madhusudan. He's using especially the word Madhusudan to refer to Krishna here. The previous verse he said Purushottama. Why previous verse he used Purushottama? Why this verse he used Madhusudan? He was not whimsical, Arjuna, when he referred to Krishna by various names. Previous verse is calling him as Purushottam because only the supreme truth, the transcendental Lord who is above and beyond this Brahman, the Devatas, the Adi Yajna, Adi Deva, Adi Bhut, because in 7th chapter he's already said, I am beyond and the Lord of all this. Only he can explain. So you are qualified, Krishna, to answer this question perfectly. So you please explain. And Madhusudan literally means the Lord who killed the demon Madhu. And Madhusudan is also interpreted as the Lord who kills the demons of doubt. So Arjuna wants to make sure that all the doubts that he may have with respect to understanding of any of these terminology are all dispelled. Because actually there is no depth, there is no limit to the depth of knowledge. Sometimes we think we know, but still there is no harm asking. So when two learned people meet, sometimes one learned person may ask another learned person one question, and a not so learned person who's sitting in the audience, you think, oh, why is asking such a simple question? I also know the answer to this question. I used to sometimes think like that. Sometimes a class would be going on and one sannyasi would ask another guru and sannyasi one question, and I was thinking, if he doesn't know the answer to this question, he could have asked me, I would have told him. I mean, this is like, I'm talking about 25 years ago. But then over time, I realized that when great souls ask each other questions, you will see this in the Gita, you will see this in the Bhagavatam. It is not that they are clueless and they don't know anything. But when you meet a person who's a great expert in the topic, a self-realized soul or the Lord himself, the depth that comes out in that answer enriches the understanding of even those who know, because there is no limit to how deeply you can know something in spiritual subject matters. There's no limit. And especially for those who are realized, when they speak from their realization, it becomes Shuka Mukha the Amrita Darva Sanyutam. The Bhagavatam was already sweet, but when it came from the mouth of Shukadev Goswami, the parrot eats the fruit, then the fruit becomes more tastier. That is what is traditionally said. So when the Shuka parrot tasted the fruit, it became even more sweeter. Bhagavatam became even sweeter because it came from the mouth of Shuka. So when great souls who realize the subject matter, they explain, then it becomes possible to get deeper and deeper insight into the subject. So Arjuna was always very eager to understand more. And that's why sometimes even amongst great souls, when they discuss some of these topics, they want to deepen their understanding. Or they want to just, sometimes it may not even be deepening the philosophical aspect, but just tasting the sweetness of hearing the glorification of the Lord from the mouth of pure devotees, because that is so supremely relishable. Because those who have affection for the Lord, attachment to the Lord, when they speak about the Lord, it is so tasty and pleasing to the heart. So, never try to judge the questioner that, oh, he's asking this, he doesn't know. We think we may know, but actually we don't know. So anyway, so he's getting various deeper and deeper understanding. So he asked the question, who is the Lord of sacrifice? Where does he live? O Madhusudan, O killer of the demons of doubt. And then he asked one very important question. Prayana kale chakatham neyosi nyatatma vihi. That those who are these yogis that you have been described, the self-controlled yogis, who are engaged in serving you, fixing their mind on you, how they can know you at Prayanakal. Prayanakal means at the time of death. Because if they don't properly know you at the time of death, definitely they will not achieve the spiritual destination. So please explain how the yogis can actually attain you when they complete this body and they come to that crossroads, that juncture, where their next destination needs to be set. So the Lord starts answering the various questions of Arjun. And he starts first by giving brief definitions of the 4 or 5 terms that Arjuna has asked about. And then he goes into a detailed explanation of the last question. Because the last question is the most pertinent. The last question is, how does the practicing yogi attain perfection at the time of death? What is that formula? Is there some specific thing he needs to do? He has been, he's been practicing throughout his life. Is there something special about at the time of death? Or it doesn't matter what he is doing at the time of death? Or is there something special about the time of death? So that is the question that Arjuna is asking. So let's see what the Lord says. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavo Adhyatma Muchyate Bhuta Bhavod Bhavakaro Visargaha Karma Samgitaha. Very beautiful definition. Just 2 or 3 words Krishna is defining each of this. This one verse, Krishna has just defined Brahma, Krishna has defined Adhyatma, and Krishna has defined Karma. 3 definitions in one shloka. Only God can do this kind of defining. 2 words definition. It was very precise and concise. What is Brahma? Aksharam Paramam Brahma. That which is of the nature of transcendence, Akshara, the indestructible, inexhaustible, transcendental reality is Brahman, which in this case is referring to the living entity. Of course, Brahman is also used to refer to the Lord, but wherever a differentiation is needed, The Lord is referred to as Parabrahman. But sometimes the word is used in both ways, sometimes to refer to the Lord, sometimes to refer to the Jiva. But in essence, Brahma means spiritual truth. And the essential characteristic of spiritual truth is Akshara Parama. That which is beyond material manifestation, Paramam, transcendental. Transcendental means beyond material modes, beyond material nature. And Aksharam, indestructible. Akshara can also be understood in the sense of unchangeable. Because spiritual reality never undergoes any form of decay or transformation. Sometimes the soul, through misidentification, can get covered over, but the true nature of the soul is never altered in any permanent way. So the Lord says the indestructible, transcendental, living entity is called Brahman. Very beautiful definition. Akshara and Parama. And what is Adhyatma? Swabhavo Adhyatma Uchyate. And the nature of that soul, of that Brahman, the nature, the spiritual nature is known as Adhyatma. Very beautiful. Brahma is spiritual reality, and the nature of that spiritual reality as a living entity, the pure soul, is Adhyatma. And what is karma? The most beautiful definition Krishna gives: Bhuta Bhavodbhavakara Visarga Karma Samgitaha. Samgita means it's called. That which results in the creation of the material body of the living entities is called karma. Very beautiful definition. Karma is not just action. Karma, in the context of fruitive work, is that activity which results in the creation of the body. Why? Because when you do any fruitive activity, you will have some reaction, either good or bad. And when you have some reaction, to enjoy or suffer that reaction, you need to take body. If you have not completed enjoying and suffering by the time you end this body, then you will take another body. So karma is that which causes the creation of the body. So at the time of death, if your karmic account is zero, then no need for another body. So some of us may think, this is very smart. I will keep a tight account of my karma and try to settle it by the time I die. But this is practically impossible without taking to the spiritual process. Because actually at any point in time, we have enough karma for another 10,000 lifetimes. We cannot even exhaust enjoying or suffering all of it. And that also doesn't mean after 10,000 lifetimes you'll be done with it, because in the meanwhile, in the next 10,000 lifetimes, you would have accrued more for another 10,000 lifetimes. That's why Adhyatma needs to be understood. What is the transcendental nature of the self? And based on that, one has to perform proper spiritual activities to get rid of this karma. That is why this concept of akarma comes. What is akarma? Is the opposite of karma. Karma creates body because it creates karma phal, and akarma destroys karma and takes us in the direction of not having any more bodies. Akarma is spiritual action. There is still action. There is action here also, there is action there also. But that action which is fruitive action with a desire for enjoyment of the fruits, it results in karma. And akarma is that action which is not done with any fruitive intention, but rather it is performed as a yajna or a sacrifice for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yajnat Yajnarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanah. 3.9, Krishna has explained already. If a karma is not performed, if an action is not performed as a yajna, as a sacrifice to the Supreme Lord, then lokoyam karma bandhana, it becomes bondage. Tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. That is why do your karma for him, for the Lord, so that with free from attachment, so that sangha samachara, so that you will not be touched by all this material karma. You can roam around freely. Freely means free from the infection of karma. We'll continue. Then Krishna goes into the definition of Adi Bhuta and Adi Yajna and Adi Devam. Again, all these three in one verse. Krishna originally referred to these three in one verse, the 7th chapter, and now he's defining all these three in one verse. The verse goes as follows. Adibhutam ksharo bhavaha purushash chadidaivatam adiyajno aham evatra dehe deha bratambara. This physical nature, Arjun, which is constantly changing, kshara. Brahma was referred to as akshara. Akshara means that which never decays, that which is never destroyed, that which never changes. But here, Adi Bhuta refers to the material manifestation. And what is the chief characteristic of the material manifestation? Bhavaha, this manifested world, is ksharaha, constantly changing. Actually, Krishna had already given this definition in the 2nd chapter, indirectly. Can anybody tell me where Krishna referred to this changing and unchanging? The 2nd chapter. Anybody on top of their head? Okay, later you can tell me, or homework for you. Okay, where Krishna says, change is the nature of the matter and non-change is the nature of the transcendental reality, the soul. Okay, we will move ahead. So he says, Adi Bhutam Ksharo Bhavaha. This material world is known as Adi Bhuta. Bhuta, the word Bhuta, of course, here the word Bhut doesn't mean Bhut as in ghost. The root Bhu, Bhu means to exist, to be. So Bhuta in this context refers to that which is created, that which comes into being. So Krishna is very clear right from the beginning, right from the 2nd chapter, Krishna is very clear. That which is created, which is born, will eventually die. Chatasya hi dhruvo mutyum. Whatever is born will die, and whatever is die will definitely take birth again. Of course, this is referring to the body or of the things in this material world. The whole universe is created and the universe is destroyed. The body is created, the body is destroyed. Buildings are created, buildings are destroyed. Civilizations are created, they are destroyed. Nations are created, they are destroyed. What is there in this material world which is not destroyed? Everything goes through transformations. For the body, it is said 6 transformations happen in the body. Anyone knows what are the 6 transformations of the body? We have discussed this a few times. Anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
It gets born, then okay, it it gets born, it would produce, there is growth, then it will decay, then there is byproduct, and finally it will diminish, something like
Yeah,
that.
it will dwindle and it will die. Yeah? So birth, growth, maintenance, then byproducts, dwindling and death. Correct? So there is always change. In fact, there is no two moments in existence where something is exactly the same. Because continuous change is the nature of material existence. Continuous. Between second to second or microsecond to microsecond, there is a difference in the body. In fact, every 7 years, the entire body is changed. All the cells in the body are changed. That's what material science is. Just like, yeah, there was a various famous philosopher, I forgot, it's a Greek philosopher. He said that you cannot take bath in the same river twice. You cannot take bath in the same river twice. What does that mean? You may go to the same spot in the river to take bath, but the water that you took bath earlier and the water that is there now is changed because the water is flowing continuously. The water that had touched your body even a second ago is now downstream. Isn't it? So time is continuously flowing, and with time, matter is undergoing continuous change. So that is what is kshara, continuous change. Kshara is the quality of the material nature, and akshara is the quality of transcendence. This is very important to understand. So that is Adibhuta, this continuously changing, transforming, manifested world is what is known as Adibhuta. And what is Adi Daiva? The universal form of the Lord, within which the various devatas form various parts of his body. The sun and the moon are the eyes. Yes, for example. So each of the part of the universal form of the Lord, various devatas are placed, who are in charge of various functions of the universal form. In fact, Prabhupada mentions this very specifically, like the sun and the moon. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and the moon, is called Adi Daiva. So, like what we discussed, this universal form of the Lord is especially meant for those who are unable to appreciate and fathom and accept the separate existence of a transcendental spiritual form of the Supreme Lord. You find it very difficult to fathom that. For them, if you say, what is God? They cannot fathom God can be a person who is transcendental to material existence. That is too far out. The best they can fathom is the universe is God. Krishna is so accommodative. Okay, fine. Never mind. You cannot relate to me. Okay, you start thinking of me, this whole material world, as my form. It's okay. That is the Adi Daiva form. Krishna is actually very kind. And nowadays, even many of these new age theories and new age school thinkers, rather than using the word God, they have started using the word universe. Universe is listening to you. Universe is taking care of you. They're shy to say the word God because there's a personal connotation to God. It sounds very unsophisticated, immature to refer to God as a person, but they don't understand. They feel like that because Their concept of God as a person is a person like you and me. But Krishna has already explained, I am not a person like you, Arjuna. I am such a person that everything exists within me. And we discussed this, right? Krishna says, everything comes from me, I am within it, but at the same time, I am outside it. And I'm at the same time also pervading all of it. So once you describe this about Krishna's personality, then people get bewildered. They start feeling dizzy. So this is too much for them to absorb. This is the higher understanding. But when most people refer to God, they think of a God as a bearded man sitting in heaven with a thunderbolt to punish those who are, bad boys and bad girls. And those who are good boys, good girls, they go to heaven, and the bad boys and bad girls are boiled in the oil. I mean, different systems have different thoughts about it, but at the end of the day, there is somebody sitting somewhere in some part of the universe on a throne dictating things. The Vedas don't talk about a God like this. That kind of a person is who the Devatas are. That is not the Supreme Lord. The Devatas are like that, sitting in a particular place in their particular abode, controlling a particular function, sometimes blessing and sometimes punishing, and sometimes even making mistakes themselves, because they themselves are not perfected. Yes, the Devatas are that. And these Devatas are part of the universal form of the Lord. And those who are struggling to accept Krishna's personality, they can accept as an interim measure, as an interim understanding, as a stepping stone to a deeper understanding, at least accept that the whole universe is the body of the Lord. The mountains are his bones, the rivers are his veins, and so on and so forth. So much description of the universal form is there in the Gita and the Bhagavad. I'm not going to go too much into that, just so that you can have the concept right. So that is the Adi Daiva, the universal form consisting of the Devatas. And I, the Supreme Lord, who's present in the heart of the living entities, every living entity as the Paramatma, that Paramatma in the heart of every living entity is known as Adi Yajna, the Lord of sacrifice. Because that is the Lord. That is your personal accompaniment of God for each individual soul. So that is the Lord of sacrifice. Then, having defined Adi Daiva, Adi Bhuta, and Adi Yajna. Okay, just to quickly summarize, Adi Bhuta is the continuously changing material existence. Adi Daiva is the universal form of the Lord, which comprises the various Devatas. And the Adi Yajna is the Paramatma aspect of the Lord, who is present in the heart of every living entity. So it is Krishna explained in the 7th chapter that he who understands me in these three features and finally understands me as the Supreme Person, he is the one who knows me perfectly. Very beautiful. That's why, as devotees, as teachers or students of Gita and Bhagavatam, you will see that Gita and Bhagavatam are actually so broad. Krishna doesn't reject anybody. Krishna is so kind that somebody is struggling to conceptualize him as the Supreme Person. They can at most think of him in the form of a universe. Krishna says, okay, I accept you, because at least you are thinking of me as the Adi Yajna. Adi Daivam. Some who are more evolved think of him as the Adi Yajna. And they go on telling everyone, God is in the heart, God is in the heart. They still don't probably properly understand, but at least they have some conception. God is everywhere, God is in my heart, God is inside. You have to go inside. Many people and many spiritualists will say many things like this. So they have some concept of this Adi Yajna that needs to be reached and accessed. And then there are those whom we spoke about, the universe, is whispering, the universe is taking care, the universe is doing everything like a big, massive engine working. So that's another conception. Krishna says, okay, all these things are fine. They are all ultimately expressions of my energies, my presence in certain ways. So if certain living entities based on a particular concept are seeing me within that, that is also fine. Even in that way, they will gradually make spiritual progress. But perfect understanding is to understand me as the supreme person who's the Lord of the Adi Bhuta, Adi Deva, and the Adi Yajna. Now Krishna moves in 8.5 to answer the last question, and now this is going to be a longer discussion. The next few verses, I think around 8-10 verses. The last question was, what or how will the yogi at the time of death, the self-controlled yogi at the time of death, attain you, O Krishna? So again, Krishna gives a very crisp definition. He doesn't say that, oh, he doesn't describe the success in terms of the process. Rather, he describes the success in terms of the attainment that is needed at the time of death for somebody to attain him. Very beautiful. Let's go through the verse, then you'll understand what I'm saying. This is a very beautiful verse. This is also one of the very, very important teachings that we have to remember. Krishna says, Antakale cha mameva स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरं यः प्रयाति samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayah. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Nasti atra samshaya. So Krishna is saying that this is a 100% fact. There is no doubt in this statement. Of course, there is no need to doubt any of Krishna's statement, but some statements are so emphatic and so shocking that sometimes we may doubt, is this really true in all situations? So Krishna is already anticipating that such doubts will come. That's why in such strong verses, he will put this kind of an additional clause. And what is the additional clause? Applicable in all situations at all times. Nasti atra samshaya. There is no doubt in this. Don't doubt. If like this, then what? If like that, then what? He thinks of me at the time of death, but before that, he had made this mistake. Then what? He had done like this that time. He said like this about me. He did this to me. He did that to me. All other things, not that it is okay to do, but the sum total of all that has been done, not just through this life, but all the activities that a person has performed, especially this is referring to a yogi, is tested at the time of death. And the test at the time of death is, there's only one question asked at the time of death. I like to describe this as the final exam. Of course, not me. Acharyas, everybody describes this as the final exam. But I like to think of it like this. The final exam of life is death. So death determines whether we have passed in life or we have failed in life. Failed from a spiritual sense, of course, one may still have made some progress. So we are not saying black or white, but here in this specific verse, Krishna is talking about who attains him, because that is the ultimate objective. So we are looking at it in that context. So do not think that anybody else who doesn't go it, he's at zero. No, they may have attained so many levels of elevation, but Krishna is talking here based on Arjuna's specific question in terms of who attains the supreme abode. So the test is at the time of the death. So we may go on making a show of great spirituality throughout our life, and we may try to put photos on Facebook of some intense japa that we are doing, uh, or of all the services we are doing. But at the end of the day, what is going on inside our heart, we only know. How our mind and our senses are actually in such a state of turmoil, and how we are being dragged by the three modes of material nature. So we may cheat everybody and anybody throughout our life, but at the end, we all have to remember there is one exam that we have to give. And that exam is the exam of death. And that exam of death is a open book test. Okay, it's an open book test which has only one question. And that too is MCQ, multiple choice question, not any difficult question. And the beauty about Krishna is, Krishna has already published the question also, and Krishna has published the answer also. And what is the question? Can you remember me at the time of death? Question. Answer, choice A, yes. 2, cannot. That's all. The question is known, the answers are known. But you have to do it when the paper is given to you. Not that you write the answer up front and say, Krishna, I know the answer. No, no, no. You have to sit for the exam at the moment of death. And you have to live the exam, not just tell the exam, tell the answer. You have to live the exam. Which means you have to actually remember. So Krishna has made it actually in one sense very simple. Smaran muktva kalevaram, remembering me alone. Alone means fully absorbed in Krishna. Not that he's still unsure, maybe, I should think of Krishna, or maybe I should think of XYZ, maybe I'm thinking of all of them because I'm not quite sure who's God. One of them will be God. Like at one point, one person visited the home of some spiritualist. It's not a devotee, but when they went to his home, so many pictures of so many different deities were there. He was offering. So this person asked him, why you are worshipping so many? So he says, see, I actually don't know who is God. So I'm just trying to be safe. I'm making sure that everybody is there, that amongst them, whoever is God will take it, my offering, and let them sort it out. I don't want to come in middle. So this kind of ignorant thinking is not going to be helpful in attaining the supreme destination. Krishna says, one must understand me as I am. Tattvataha. Smaran muktva kalevaram. Mam eva, in my form as Krishna, clearly remembering me. Yaha prayati, he who lives. Samad bhavam, because he is absorbed in consciousness of me, he attains the existence which is of the nature of me. Mad bhavam. Yati, he goes there. Nasti atra samshaya, there is no doubt. So the question, the exam date is unknown, obviously. But we all know we have to give this exam. We all know what the question paper looks like. We know the question, we know the answers. All we have to do is practice, because the test is going to be a surprise test. Not that we are going to be told, oh, on this day, this time you will die. Of course, even if we were told very precisely, we are not, 99.99% of us don't know. But even if we were told, it doesn't necessarily make answering the paper much easier. It doesn't. Because at the end of the day, the ability to answer that question is not about knowing theoretically the answer. It is about how you have led your life. It is not possible for an impure soul to remember Krishna at the time of death. At the time of death, the body and the mind goes through such turmoil. Only a person who's deeply attached to Krishna, who has cultivated attachment to Krishna all his life, it will be possible for such a person to remember Krishna. And that is why the scriptures say one must practice remembering the Lord all throughout his life. And that is why one should regularly, with a steady discipline, chant Krishna's holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If one chants the Lord's holy name, lives a life of humility and tolerance and seva, then it will be possible at the end moment that one can pass the exam with flying colors. Otherwise, even if somebody stole the paper, told the question, when the actual moment of death comes, one's consciousness will automatically run and absorb towards that which the heart is most attached to. I'll tell you a story. There was one cloth merchant. He's very materialistic. Always think about money, 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 money. Growing his business. He had a shop, a cloth shop. Very wealthy. He had many children. Children had wives, grandchildren. Very prosperous, very attached. He had heard in a Bhagavad Gita class this particular verse. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yap prayati sabadbhavam yati nastyatra samshaya. It's a very good idea. Why to become spiritual all my life? I know the answer, I know the paper, I know the question, I know the answers, and I have by hearted the answer. Remember Krishna, remember Krishna, remember Krishna at the time of death. So let me just enjoy this world. The time of death comes, I will remember and I'll go back to Godhead. Wonderful, beautiful. I will cheat the system. So he became old. One day he became sick and he was lying on his deathbed. The family members, some of them were around him. His wife was there. And understanding that he's about to leave his body, he summoned for all his family, his sons, his daughters, his grandchildren. He was lying down on the bed. And as he was lying on the bed, he also started to get a sense that he's going to leave his body soon. So he remembered, oh, Bhagavad Gita, Antakale chamameva smaran. So he was trying to remember Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I must remember Krishna, I must remember Krishna. So his wife was standing next to him. And his wife was telling him, because they all knew that this is probably the last time they are going to see him. Said, oh, my dear husband, see how all your dear relatives have gathered here around you. See me, your wife, I am here. And he was looking, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, because he was trying to make sure he remembers Krishna. See, your elder son is here. He looked at his elder son, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. His wife is here. His children are here. And then she started pointing to the younger son and his family. Hare Krishna is looking. Then here, your middle son and his family. And as he went and looked through all of them, suddenly something came up in the mind of this attached materialistic cloth merchant. He suddenly spoke, if all of you are here right now, who is at the shop? And as soon as he said that, his life had left his body and he died. So he tried to trick the system, but when the actual time of death came, what his heart was actually attached to is what actually naturally came up in his consciousness. And this is what the next verse of the Bhagavad Gita speaks about. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajantyante kalevaram tam tameva iti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitah. Sada tad bhava bhavitah. If one is continuously engaged in a particular state of consciousness, always, that state of consciousness itself will come into his mind at the time of death. And based on that consciousness which comes at the time of death, one accordingly achieves one's next destination. This is the principle. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Why he attains without fail? Because sadatad bhava bhavita, because always he has been influenced by that consciousness. So, if you want to see it in terms of cause and effect, whatever one is thinking throughout one's life, the predominant consciousness, that will become the consciousness of the time of death. And that consciousness at the time of death will determine the state of one's next existence. Okay, very simple. Whatever, this is not just applicable to attaining the supreme abode. Krishna is generalizing the principle now. It's not just about attaining the supreme destination, but whatever state. That is why in the Bhagavatam there is a story of this yogi who at one point, Bharat Maharaj, who at one point, rather than focusing his mind on Krishna, became distracted and got attached to a deer. And he became so attached to the deer that his attachment for the deer became more than the attachment to the Lord. So at the time of death, he remembered the deer rather than remembering Krishna. And he became a deer, even though he was a very advanced yogi. Of course, the Lord took care of him. And even as a deer, he was able to remember his past lives. But nonetheless, he became a deer. Sadatad bhava bhavita. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. So we have to be very careful. So there is no escaping following the process of practicing remembering Krishna. Just think about it. If we cannot even remember Krishna with absorption, when we are well and everything is going on wonderfully, when we have clothes to wear, when we have food in our stomach, and things are all okay, even then, if we cannot remember Krishna, do you think we'll be able to remember him at the moment of death? Moment of death is like the biggest possible calamity. Why is the biggest possible calamity? Because everything about you is going to be taken away at that moment. All your relatives, all your money, all your name, fame, your degrees, your possessions, your identity is going to be snatched away in a painful, chaotic way where all your body and your pranas and your mind are going to get into turmoil. Everything is going to be snatched away in one moment. Do you think it's going to be a pleasant experience? And do you think you will be in a nice contemplative mood to think, okay, I'm dying now, huh? Let me try to recollect what I'm supposed to do. Let me take out my notebook and check. I'm supposed to remember Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You think it's going to be like this? In that excruciating and most difficult situation, naturally, whatever is deepest and closest to the heart is what will automatically come. That's why the great souls and the Lord is telling here that if we cannot even absorb our mind when everything is fine, it's practically impossible to absorb the mind at the time of death in the Lord. How we can hope for that? So our practice begins not about the dying. Dying is the last exam. But the study is practice remembering him when things are still okay. You begin there. The body and the mind is still functioning. Practice, and develop an attachment to him. Then it will become possible to remember Krishna at the time of death. And then Krishna, very beautifully, I will take this as the last verse before we end for today. In 8.7, says, he summarizes to Arjuna, to telling him that I have told you this philosophy about remembering me at the time of death, but what does that actually mean for you in the context of what I am telling you for your situation now, Arjuna? What does it mean for you so that you can remember me at the time of death? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mayyarpita manobuddhir mame vaishyasya samshayah. If you want to attain me without fail, like what I told earlier, by remembering me at the time of death, how you should live? You live like this. You perform always your duties with detachment and as an offering to me. And at the same time, even as you are fighting your war, Mama Anusmara Yudhyacha. You remember me and fight. Don't forget me as you are performing your work. If you forget me while performing your work, then you will perform your work with fruitive intentions. You will not be able to perform it as a yajna. For yajna, you must remember, Mama Anusmara Yudhyacha. Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu, all the time. Mam Anusmara Yudhya. Of course, for Arjuna, it was actually fighting the battle. But for us, it is the battle of life. If you fight the battle of life, always remembering the Lord and doing all your activities as an offering to the Lord, then I consider that your mind and intelligence is offered to me. Maya arpita mano buddhir. And because of that, mam eva aishyasi asamshayah. You will attain me without any doubt. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. For Arjuna, the prescribed duty was fighting. For us, it may be our job, our business, our studies, our duties at home. And most of the time, it is not just one duty. We have so many duties based on so many roles that we play in society. But if we perform that with detachment and at the same time remember Krishna, then because your activity is dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without a. So this kind of a consciousness of always remembering Krishna as we perform our activities, Prabhupada says that if we are continuously chanting Hare Krishna, then it will be possible for us to perform our material activities in the consciousness of dedication to the Lord. It is not just the theoretical understanding that will allow. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause here at 8.7 and we'll continue our discussion from 8.8 the next week. So any questions, any comments? Okay, wonderful. So since there are no questions or comments, sorry, Sudhir Sundar Prabhu, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Prabhu. I just wanted to clarify 2 points.
Yeah.
Prabhu, okay. Basically, Krishna says that whatever state of consciousness that the person would remembers at the point of the death, he will attain it. So when we are talking about this consciousness, does it also, it's kind of dependent on our, what is that, karma and so on?
Karma in the sense that what is the activity we are performing. Karma not in the sense that what was our past karma. Our past karma will create certain situations. But if we practice remembering Krishna, irrespective of what our duty is, we may be Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or even a Chandala for that matter. Yehi Krishna, Tattvavetti Sahi Guru hai. Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi, Shudra ke bina. So it doesn't matter what our duties, if we perform our duty with a spiritual consciousness, then it is possible. So, karma, not in the sense of that the type of karma or the pap or punya that is constraining us, but if we perform our activity in Krishna consciousness, then it will be possible to remember whatever that duty may be. It may be a police officer, maybe a teacher, maybe a office clerk, maybe a businessman, soldier, lawyer, politician, beggar, sadhu, housewife, whatever our position may be. Yeah. So karma in terms of our past karma, if you say, is that going to be an impediment? If we are determined in Krishna consciousness, we can actually burn all our past karma without much difficulty. If we take shelter of Krishna in the process of Krishna consciousness. And that is why Krishna says in the 4th chapter, right, that this fire of transcendental knowledge can burn away unlimited amounts of karma. And those who are seated on the boat of transcendental knowledge can cross over the vast ocean of material existence. Vrijanim samtarishyasi. You will be able to cross over. So once we get into the association of devotees and develop knowledge, if we remain fixed in the process of Krishna consciousness and follow this principle, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha, we do that to our best of our ability. Of course, based on our background and our karma, we may face some kind of difficulty in trying to implement it perfectly. But that is where the formula that Krishna gives is very important. The problem we have difficulty is because we don't follow our duties. If we follow our duties based on our qualities, then it will not be so difficult. But actually, Kali Yuga is such a mess that most of us are, in duties which are not our duties. We get trapped in so many things. That's why our life becomes such a big struggle. But all we have to do, Krishna is saying, is follow our natural duties, do it with detachment from sense gratification and with a desire to serve the Lord. Then one can actually, independent of one's past karma and karma balance, one can actually stop the future generation of karma and achieve perfection by being absorbed in Krishna consciousness in that. Yeah, I hope that answers.
Okay, Prabhu. Thanks.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. So thank you. We will be seeing you on Saturday then. And thank you all very much. Granth Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.